Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really immersing ourselves in a whole stack of sources. We've got
Mm.
articles, essays, notes, all focused on writing and storytelling.
Yeah, and specifically what they say about, facing that blank page, finding your voice, and maybe why just putting words down matters so much,
Hmm.
even if, like, nobody else ever sees them.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive, it's really to unpack what this material tells us. How do you even approach writing? How do you get past the usual hurdles, the doubt, the fear?
And maybe the biggest thing why is writing, just engaging with words, such a fundamental tool for thinking, creating, connecting.
Exactly. This isn't about suddenly becoming a best-selling author overnight. It's exploring writing as just a deeply human thing we do.
Okay, let's get into it. What these sources seem to start with is something really foundational, almost revolutionary in its quiet way.
Oh, what's that?
That writing is possibly the most accessible, most personal form of creation there is, period.
Accessible. Okay, unpack that a bit. Why revolutionary?
Well, think about it. Unlike painting or music or filmmaking, it doesn't demand expensive gear
Yeah.
or special training or even, a quiet room necessarily.
True.
You literally just need some way to capture thoughts. Pen and paper, notes app on your phone, a laptop.
Uh,
Scratching in the sand, technically, it kind of democratizes the act of creating something.
and a big point in the sources is that you don't need to be good at it first. Forget needing talent.
Right. Forget talent. It's more about courage. Just the willingness to put something down, anything. Get past that initial stopping point.
That inertia. Yeah, that makes sense.
Totally. And what helps make it accessible, according to these sources, is just the sheer range of forms writing can take. We tend to jump to novel or essay.
But it's so much broader. Journaling obviously comes up a lot. Great for reflection, processing.
Definitely. But then there's fiction. Short stories, flash fiction, even fan fiction gets a nod. Poetry, whether it rhymes and scans or is totally freeform.
And then creative nonfiction, right? Like memoir or those personal essays that explore a big idea through your own experience.
Yeah, or scripts for plays, films, or maybe just writing dialogue scenes to figure out how characters sound.
And the sources even loop in simpler things. Lists. Letters that are more than just, here's the info. Emails. Even social media threads that tell a tiny story.
It's like they're saying, try lots of things. See what feels fun, what feels natural, maybe even therapeutic for you. Don't just stick to one idea of what writing is.
Like trying on different clothes, almost.
Or different lenses, yeah.
Yeah.
A diary entry captures raw feeling. Turning that same event into a poem forces you into images, rhythm. Different forms give different insight.
Which connects right to how you actually start, especially if you feel stuck. The sources offer loads of low-pressure entry points.
Oh yeah, the comparison to coloring books. I love that.
Me too. It gives you structure, a starting line, so you're not just facing infinite, terrifying white space.
Exactly. Beats that I must write genius now paralysis. Instead, it's a small challenge. Like, write a letter from your stapler to you. Silly, maybe, but it gets you going.
They had some great examples. Write to your future self. That makes you think, doesn't it?
Totally. Or describe your breakfast like it's a steamy romance novel.
That's just fun. Gets you playing with language. Or two strangers meet on a spaceship. Boom, instant setup.
You get a sandbox, right? Not the whole desert. And tools help too.
Yeah.
Prompt journals exist. Simple writing apps like Day One or Bear, they cut out distractions.
On to setting a timer. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Write anything. No judgment.
Because, and this phrase really jumped out from the sources, it's easier to fix a bad page than a blank one.
Oh, that's powerful. It just flips the script, doesn't it? It's not about perfection out of the gate. It's about having something to work with, clay to mold.
Exactly. And accepting that bad page idea,
Yeah.
it connects to another core point. Writing, especially creative writing, it's more art than science.
Right, because school often drills the science part. Grammar, structure, citations.
Yeah, the mechanics,
Hmm.
which are useful.
Hmm.
But the sources emphasize the artistry, the craft. Things like tone. Is it sarcastic,
Yeah.
gentle, formal, urgent?
And voice, which isn't just who is talking, but their whole personality, their way of seeing the world baked into the words, like
Yeah.
how a specific character narrates things uniquely.
And perspective, naturally. First person I, third person heshethy, even that tricky second person you. Each one changes how close the reader feels.
And then there's the design aspect, the order of revelation. This is fascinating. What info do you give the reader, and crucially when? What do you hold back?
The classic example used is suspense versus mystery. It illustrates it so well.
Okay, yeah.
So if the reader knows who the killer is, but the characters don't, that's suspense. The tension is in the waiting, the dramatic irony.
Right, you're yelling at the book, don't go in there.
Exactly.
Okay.
But if nobody knows who did it, not you, not the detective,
Yeah.
that's mystery. The tension is in figuring it out together, the puzzle.
So those choices directly shape the reader's emotional ride. It's deliberate design.
Totally. You're sculpting their experience. Curiosity, surprise, dread. It's all in how you structure the reveals.
Okay, so if someone's listening and thinking, right, I want to try building a little story, where do the sources suggest starting?
With the basics, the building blocks, like characters. Who is this person? What drives them? What are they afraid of? Even simple answers are fine.
Then setting. Where are they? What's the vibe of this place? Is it cozy, menacing, boring? How does place affect things?
And plot, which sounds grand but can be tiny. What happens? What one event unfolds? And crucially, how does it change something, even slightly, for the character or the situation?
You could mash them up with a prompt, something like a nervous character in a crowded place receives a cryptic note. That gives you all three elements to start playing with.
Exactly. And you don't need the whole plot mapped out. The sources really stress this. A lot of writers, especially starting out, find the story as they write. They start with a person, a place, a problem, and see where it leads.
Which brings us back to the messy first draft. It's okay. It's expected even.
It's more than okay. It's often necessary. First drafts are exploratory. They ramble, they take wrong turns. That's part of the process.
The first draft is for finding it. Later drafts are for shaping it. That distinction feels really key.
Super liberating. And speaking of low-pressure ways in, free writing pops up again and again in these sources.
Yes, the timer method. Set it for, say, 5 or 10 minutes.
And just write whatever comes into your head nonstop. Don't edit, don't censor, don't worry about spelling or grammar. Just keep the pen moving or fingers typing.
Grammar is like salt, right? You add it later to taste, not when you're just getting the ingredients out.
Perfect analogy. The aim is to bypass that inner critic, that editor voice that shuts you down before you even start. Get the raw stuff out.
Other tips for consistency. Morning pages were mentioned. 3 pages, longhand, first thing, stream of consciousness.
Yeah, like a mental drain clearing. Just getting the gunk out onto the page so you can think clearer later.
And a practical one. Reuse your old stuff. Snippets from journals, social media posts, even interesting bits from texts or emails. They can be sparks.
Keep an idea bank too. A notebook, a file, for quotes, observations, weird thoughts, overheard conversations. Raw material is everywhere.
The overall message seems to be, find a routine that's forgiving, not some rigid schedule you'll break and feel guilty about. Sustainable is the goal.
Exactly. Which leads nicely into another distinction the sources draw out, writing for yourself versus writing for others.
Both totally valid, right?
Completely. And they do different things. Journaling, mostly for you. Processing, clarifying, remembering. Writing stories or poems could be just for you, exploring ideas or feelings, or maybe eventually for others.
But writing with an audience in mind, like a blog or maybe work emails, that forces a different kind of clarity, doesn't it? You have to think about how it lands.
For sure. But and the sources are emphatic on this.
Yeah.
You're 100% allowed to write only for yourself, forever. And you're also allowed to dream of being published widely. One isn't better.
And here's a really powerful idea that came through. Don't confuse exposure with worth.
Yes, that's huge. The sources basically say,
Yeah.
you are a writer the moment you write words down with intention. The value isn't just in eyeballs or applause. The act itself has worth.
Which ties directly into tackling writer's block.
Right, because the sources frame block less as, I have no ideas, and more as fear. Fear of not being good enough, fear of judgment, fear of being well seen.
What if it's awful? What if people misunderstand you? What if I say something dumb? Yeah, those are real anxieties.
So the strategies offered are about lowering the stakes. Set a ridiculously low bar for today's session. Use a prompt. Change where you write, go to a cafe or the park.
Or even change the tool. If the keyboard feels intimidating, grab a notebook. Sometimes that physical shift helps.
And again, reminding yourself, you can write something and immediately delete it or hide it away. Sharing is a separate decision. The writing comes first.
Another perspective shift offered is thinking of writing as discovery, not just delivery.
Meaning, You don't have to know exactly what you want to say before you start typing.
Exactly. The sources suggest the act of writing itself clarifies your thinking. It helps you figure out what you actually believe or feel. It makes connections your brain might not make otherwise.
It's a unique kind of thinking tool. And tied into that freedom from knowing the end, freedom from perfection is freedom from, like, super rigid language rules.
The grammar police. The sources say, kinda forget them.
Well, not entirely forget, but see grammar as guidelines, conventions. Especially in creative stuff, writers play with language. Tone, dialect, sentence fragments, intentional run-ons. That's style. That's voice.
Your unique rhythm, the way you actually talk, the words you use, that's all valid writing material.
Definitely. So don't feel you have to write perfect long paragraphs or complete stories every single time. Short bursts are fine. Fragments are fine.
Embracing the incomplete is okay. A single killer sentence, a character sketch that doesn't become a story, a scene fragment that still counts.
It's all writing. Putting words down with intention. Making something exist that didn't before.
Okay, another thing the sources address is reading. Sometimes reading amazing writers can be daunting.
Yeah, it can make you feel like, why bother? But the sources reframe it. Read as fuel, not as a threat.
How so?
Read to observe. How do they make me care about that character? How do they use sensory details there? Why do they choose that word? How do they pace things?
Like looking under the hood. Not comparing your car to theirs, but seeing how the engine works. Let it inspire, not intimidate.
Precisely. And ultimately, doing any of this, playing with words, trying prompts, journaling, whatever,
Yeah.
it builds skills that are useful everywhere. It's way more than a niche hobby.
The benefits really do ripple out, don't they? School essays get clearer, work emails communicate better.
You get better at telling stories in conversation. You can articulate your feelings more clearly, and for yourself. Reflection, processing stuff, making sense of things, it's powerful.
It builds communication, sure, but also empathy, stepping into other shoes, and clarity, because you have to wrestle ideas into words.
But what about those nagging doubts? The sources tackle them directly. Like writing isn't practical.
Which we just kind of debunked. It builds core life and career skills.
Right. Or, I don't have anything new to say.
But the response to that is lovely. Maybe the topic isn't new, but your way of saying it is. Your voice, your angle, your specific mix of experiences. Nobody else has that exact combo. That's originality right there.
And the big one. The showstopper for so many people. No one will read this.
And the sources just say, basically, so what? And that's okay.
Exactly. Creation doesn't need validation by audience size to matter. The value is in the act, the discovery, the expression. Visibility doesn't equal worth.
So pulling it all together, the final takeaways from these sources feel really encouraging.
Yeah, very much so. You don't need to be aiming for novelist status to be a writer. Any words count.
You don't have to finish everything. You don't need to know the end when you start. Just starting is the key.
And they leave us with that beautiful idea. A paragraph can hold a universe.
Wow. Yeah. That universe could be tiny, the history etched in someone's hands. Or huge, an entire imagined world. Or internal mapping out an emotion.
Writing is a space to play, to shift perspective, to invent, to give voice to things, light and dark.
And the goal shouldn't be, is it good, necessarily, but maybe, is it true? Is it mine?
Just make it. That's the core message.
So what does all this mean, really? This deep dive suggests writing is, well, way more within reach than we might think. Super flexible.
Yeah, it's not some secret club. It's a basic human tool for finding things out, expressing yourself, connecting.
And you really don't need permission or perfection or even an audience to get something valuable out of just putting words down. The main thing, again and again, seems to be just starting, finding a rhythm that works for you, even if it's tiny.
A few minutes, a sentence. And that leads to the really interesting final thought. Building on that quote, if a paragraph can hold a universe.
What universe will you explore today? Or create? Or just notice?